everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today we don't have a book review. Today we're talking about awards. Yes, award season has begun again and we have one big award coming out with the nominees having been announced, and that is the Nebula Awards. Before we jump into all of that, don't forget, subscribe, like the content, and comment away. Which one is your favorite? We're gonna go through them, but if you know already, just comment away. So for those that don't know, the Nebula Awards are one of the biggest awards an author can get in their career, and they're awarded to the biggest fantasy and sci-fi books published in the previous 2 years. Mostly it's just the previous year. So in this case, we're talking about books that were published in 2023. And I think especially with the whole recent Hugo Award debacle and all the scandals that have been happening, the Nebulas are in a precarious place where they do need to show that they are a prestigious award and they do care about the authors that are nominated and that everything is crystal clear and there's no shady business going around. So there's a lot going on for these awards. I like to go through the nominees and through these awards simply because sometimes they have really good recommendations, and when I feel like I need some inspiration of some book to read, I just go through the winners and the nominees, choose a couple of them and read them, and some of them have been really great reads. So we're gonna start the 6 of them. We'll just go through briefly, read synopsis, all that jazz, you know how it goes here. So let's start with our first nominee. Our first nominee is The Saint of Bright Doors, and the author's name is, I'm gonna butcher it, so just give me a second, Vajra Chanda Sekera, I think. Hopefully I did it right. This is a fantasy book in the urban fantasy subgenre, and the synopsis reads as follows. Again, for all these nominees, I'll have a timestamp just floating around in case you don't want to hear anything about it and you just want to know titles, authors, scores, all those details. But if you want to hear what the book is actually about, then just stick around and listen to it. Feta was raised to kill, honed as a knife to cut down his sainted father. This gave him plenty to talk about in therapy. He walked among invisible devils and anti-gods that mocked a mortal form. He learned the lethal catechism, lost his shadow, and gained a habit for secrecy. After a blood-soaked childhood, Fatter escaped his rural hometown for the big city and fell into a broader world where divine destinies are a dime a dozen. Everything in Luriat is more than it seems. Group therapy is recruitment for a revolutionary cadre. Junk email hints at the arrival of a god. Every door is laden with potential, and once closed may never open again. This city is scattered with bright doors, looming portals through which a cold wind blows. In this unknowable metropolis, Fetter will discover what kind of man he is, and his discovery will rewrite the world. Okay, we're back. As you can see, this seems to be quite the fantasy merged with our current world, and it actually reminded me a bit of the 10,000 Doors of January. I mean, not really, there's just the doors that lead to different worlds and all of that, but I think the voice will be quite different in these two books. But nonetheless, sounds interesting. If you like political intrigue and topics such as colonialism, LGBTQIA+ issues and topics, then maybe this book will be for you, and maybe you'll want to have this one as your winner. On Goodreads, this book hasn't had many ratings. It has just shy of, or a bit over 1,000 ratings, and the average score it has is 3.72. So not that great in terms of score, but then again, it doesn't have that many ratings, so it's quite underhyped, I would say, and it might have a better rating once people get to read more of it. Our next nominee is The Water Outlaws by S.L. Huang. This is also a fantasy book, more centered into Asian historical fiction, and of course, its main focus will be adventure, and it seems LGBTQIA+ focus as well. Again, the synopsis is as follows, timestamp, you know. In the Jianghu, you break the law to make it your own. Lim Chong is an expert arms instructor, training the emperor's soldiers in sword and truncheon, battle axe and spear, lance and crossbow. Unlike bolder friends who flirt with challenging the unequal hierarchies and values of imperial society, she believes in keeping her head down and doing her job, until a powerful man with a vendetta rips that carefully built life away. Disgraced, tattooed as a criminal, and on the run from an imperial marshal who will stop at nothing to see her dead, Lim Chong is recruited by the bandits of Liangshan. Mountain outlaws on the margin of society, the Liangshan bandits proclaim a belief in justice for women, for the downtrodden, For progressive thinkers, a corrupt empire would imprison or destroy. They're also murderers, thieves, smugglers, and cutthroats. Apart, they love like demons and fight like tigers. Together, they could bring down an empire. Okay, with this book, it sounds promising, but I think for me, after reading The Burning God, which is such a great read, I don't know if it would be able to top it, so I'm not sure I will read it, or maybe I will read it in a long time once The Burning God memories have faded a bit and I won't be comparing all the time with it. On Goodreads, this book also has over 1,000 ratings, but the score is slightly higher, it's 3.84. Again, with this many, or with these few ratings, there is not much trust you can put in this score, because it could be much higher if it had, I would say, 10 times the number of ratings. So let's take it with a grain of salt and not judge it too harshly. Our third nominee is Translation State by Anne Leckie. And for those who do know, Anne Leckie is the author of Ancillary Justice, Mercy, and the third, which I cannot remember, that basically is a trilogy that has won awards previously. So let's see if Anne Leckie is able to win one more award. This book is a science fiction. It has been nominated before for the Goodreads Choice Awards in the science fiction section, and it's a space opera subgenre of science fiction. The synopsis will be the following, so, you know. When Ine's grandmaman passes away, Ine inherits something entirely unexpected. A diplomatic assignment to track down a fugitive who has been missing for over 200 years. No one actually expects Ine to succeed. It's an empty assignment meant to keep her occupied, but Ine has never had a true purpose. No one ever expected her to do more than care for grandmaman. So C is determined to accomplish this task to the best of her ability. Reed knows nothing about his biological family. He loves his adoptive parents, but has always secretly yearned to understand his identity, the roots that would explain why he seems to operate just a bit differently. After all, no one else hungers to study the world by ripping it apart, by slicing into those around them in order to make sense of things. So when a political group approaches him with the claim that he has ties to a genetically mysterious, long-deceased family, Reed is only too eager to believe them. Glenn has created to be a good translator, the pride of their clade. They always had a clear path before them, learn human ways, and eventually make a match and serve as an intermediary between the dangerous alien Presger and the human worlds. The realization that they might want something different isn't optimal behavior. It's the type of behavior that will have you eliminated. But Glenn rebels anyway, determined to find a way to belong on their own terms. As the conclave of the various species approaches and the long-standing treaty between the humans and the Presger is on the line, the paths of all three will collide in a chain of events that will have ripple effects across galaxies. Okay, this, I gotta admit, is one of the books that has me most excited to read. It gives me a bit of memory called Empire vibes together with Pandora's Star, which was a book I loved. And so these two kind of mixed together sounds interesting. I might pick it up. Let's see. On Goodreads, this book has over 8,000 ratings, so quite a bit more than the previous two, and its score is also a bit higher, standing on 4.13. So it seems that the fame from previous books always helps, of course, and let's see if it's able to snatch the award or if other nominees will be able to do that. Our fourth nominee is Terraformers by Annalee Newitt. This is a science fiction book as well. It has tags on adventure, LGBTQIA+ topics, and it's a medium-paced book, so not too fast, not too slow, just in case you want to know that. And the synopsis is as follows, stick with me. Destry is a top network analyst with the Environmental Rescue Team, an ancient organization devoted to preventing ecosystem collapse. On the planet Sask-E, her mission is to terraform an Earth-like world with the help of her taciturn muse, Whistle. But then she discovers a city that isn't supposed to exist. Hidden inside a massive volcano, torn between loyalty to the ERT and the truth of the planet's history, Destry makes a decision that echoes down the generations. Centuries later, Destry's protege, Misha, is building a planet-wide transit system when his worldview is turned upside down by Sulfur, a brilliant engineer from the volcano sea. Together, they uncover a dark secret about a real estate company that's buying up huge swaths of the planet, a secret that could destroy the lives of everyone who isn't Homo sapiens. Working with a team of robots, naked mole rats, and a very angry cyborg cow quietly sow seeds of subversion. But when they're threatened with violent diaspora, Misha and Sulfur's very unusual child faces a stark choice: deploy a planet-altering weapon, or watch their people lose everything they've built on Sask-E. Okay, we're back. I'm not really sure about this book. It seems a bit all over the place in terms of the synopsis. It also gives me a bit of YA vibes, not that there's anything wrong with it, but still, I don't think it should be marketed together with the other awards, but who knows, I might be completely surprised. And if this wins the award, it might just be a kind of absurdist science fiction dystopian novel that might appeal to a lot of people, so who knows. On Goodreads, this book has a bit over 4,000 ratings, so not that low compared to the first two, not that high as the Unlikely's translation state. However, the score for this book is only 3.39, which is very low on Goodreads terms. I mean, anything below 4, people start wondering. Anything below 3.5, it's very rare to see. I'm curious to see why it's so low. Maybe I'll have to look at some of the reviews and figure it out, but let's move on to the next one. Our second last nominee is Shigidi and the Brass Head of Obalufon, if I said that right. Obalufon, by Walid Talabi, if I said that right again. These books have all such weird names, I'm afraid I'm mispronouncing them all. Let's hope I didn't murder the names. Now we're going back to fantasy. Again, this is an urban fantasy that is full of African mythology. And I mean, this sounds very promising. We don't see African mythology a lot. We see mostly Greek or Nordic mythology in books nowadays. Now Asian mythology is also coming up to the top, but African is still quite unheard of, so this spikes my interest. Let's see about the synopsis. Shigidi is a disgruntled and demotivated nightmare god in the Orisha spirit company, reluctantly answering prayers of his few remaining believers to maintain his existence long enough to find his next drink. When he meets Noma, a sort of succubus with a long and secretive past, everything changes for him. Together, they attempt to break free of his obligations and the restrictions that have bound him to his godhood and navigate the parameters of their new relationship in the shadow of her past. But the elder gods that run the Orisha Spirit Company have other plans for Shigidi, and they are not all aligned or good. From the boisterous streets of Lagos to the swanky rooftop bars of Singapore and the secret spaces of London, Shigidi and Neoma will encounter old acquaintances, rival gods, strange creatures, and manipulative magicians as they are drawn into a web of revenge, spirit business, and the spectacular heist across two worlds that will change Shigidi's understanding of himself forever and determine the fate of the Orisha Spirit Company. Sounds good. It looks a bit like, it reminds me a bit of The Magician and, oh, The Alchemist. I mean, there's a series that was YA, started with The Alchemist and The Magician, I think. It had a whole bunch of books, and I really loved them as a kid, and yeah, this kind of gave me a bit of those vibes, although maybe a bit more mature with the succubus in it. But yeah, who knows? This book is the one that has the fewest amount of ratings. It only has 470, not even 1,000, which surprises me considering it's one of the nominees for the Nebula Awards. I was expecting it to start having a lot more just from being a nominee because it sparks people's curiosities, but I guess not. And the score on Goodreads is 3.73, which isn't the worst, so I don't know. These are very dynamic and interesting to see how or why they're picked. Our last nominee is Witch King by Martha Wells, who is also a very famous author by writing other books that have been nominated for awards. One of them, or a series of them, is the Murderbot series. Witch King is a fantasy book, not a sci-fi, and it has also been one of the nominees for the Goodreads Choice Awards, but of course in the fantasy section. If you like high fantasy, witches, magic, then this book might be the one for you and might be your favorite to win. The synopsis is as follows. After being murdered, his consciousness dormant and unaware of the passing of time while confined in an elaborate water trap, Kai wakes to find a lesser mage attempting to harness Kai's magic to his own advantage. That was never going to go well. But why was Kai imprisoned in the first place? What has changed in the world since his assassination? And why does the Rising World Coalition appear to be growing in influence? Kai will need to pull his allies close and draw on all his pain magic if he is to answer even the least of these questions. He's not going to like the answers. It's a small synopsis, but it kind of sounds promising. At least it got me curious to read more about it. On Goodreads, this book has over 14,000 ratings, so it's the one that has the most ratings. Its score is not the highest though, as the score it has is 3.72, which is very, very close to the previous nominee that we just spoke about. But yeah, all these 6 were or are the nominees for the Nebula Awards for Best Novel in 2024. Let's see who wins. Of course, if we think that the most famous one will win, as this usually happens on Goodreads with the Choice Awards, then Martha Wells' Witch King would probably win since it has the most amount of ratings. But if we go by the score, which is usually how we define the best books or the books that people think are the best, then Translation State by Anne Leckie would probably be the winner. So we have this duality. Maybe it's neither of these and one of the underdogs will sweep and win the awards. We'll see. The awards come out in June this year, so we still have a couple of months to wait. But what better time to start reading them and then try to see which one will be the winner, right? Alright, so comment down below, who do you think will win? And if you're new, don't forget, subscribe, like the content, and we'll be seeing you soon for more book reviews. Okay, bye.